So all of this kind of adds up to an extremely motivated Democratic voter base, and independent voters that are swinging towards Democratic candidates, and frankly, demoralized MAGA Republican voters. And they're not going to show up like they did or do when Trump's on the ballot. So it's, again, there's not a lot of good news right now for Republicans. That said, and I'll say it again, Democrats cannot rest on their laurels and assume that they're going to win. Because if the margins are not significant, there is risk that the wins will be overturned by Trump in a desperate attempt to retain his power and avoid accountability.
Hello and welcome to the Trump Report. I'm Louis Sykes. Today we are joined by Mary Corcoran, CEO of the Save America movement. Mary, thank you very much for joining me today.
My pleasure.
Well, Mary, Donald Trump has called for a federalization of US voting, which has set alarm
Uh-huh.
bells ringing across the US. What
Mhm.
would nationalizing voting mean for the American electoral system?
Well, it's not even really a valid question because it's not a constitutional possibility. In the United States, states run elections, not the federal government. The U.S. Constitution is clear about that. And, Donald Trump can say whatever he likes, but it's just not a reality.
And for our European audience, why do US states organize voting in elections and how does that system work?
So, our elections are run by our state secretaries of state, and it was designed that way. Our founding fathers ensured that even before we had a federal government, our states were running our elections, and we kept it that way even if we after we had a federalized government to ensure that if a demagogue like Trump ever came along, he wouldn't be able to take it over. So it's very purposeful, it's very intentional in the way that we're set up. And just because Donald Trump wants to change it doesn't mean it's going to change.
And yeah, exactly. So, if this is blocked under the Constitution, is there even any next step for Trump to take? And why do you think the Republicans or at least the MAGA Republicans, seem to have taken something of a stand on this issue?
Well, I mean, it's very clear that Donald Trump is running scared that he is going to lose certainly the House and potentially even the Senate in the 2026 election. The American people have spoken in a variety of different ways that they are not having his policies. If you look at the results of local and special elections here in the US, including a special election from the Texas state legislature last week, Democrats won a seat by 14 points that had gone for Trump by 17 points in 2024. That's a 31-point swing. And it actually has MAGA Republicans questioning if they should even run in many districts across the US. So, it's clear that the MAGA coalition is cracking. The American public is not having it. It's not having the results, the atrocious results of the Trump administration's policies, and he's running scared. So whether it's claiming that he's going to nationalize elections, try this gerrymandering BS that frankly is not working, to voter intimidation. This is all a play to hold on to power in a situation where he's very close to losing it.
And you talk about some of the concerns within the party as well. Texas Governor Greg Abbott, for example, has said he opposes the idea. Could this issue split the Republican Party, especially between the kind of federal and state levels?
You know, I would like to think someone like Greg Abbott might have enough of a spine to go against Trump fully. I don't believe that. But do I think that there's a possibility that Republicans are seeing the writing on the wall and are going to protect their own hides at the expense of Trump? Yes, I think that is true. It doesn't mean that I think that there's any honor in what they're doing. By the way, it's all about saving their own power and holding on to their own power. But I think that as people like Abbott can see that sticking with Trump is going to be a losing proposition for him, that we'll see more and more of these Republicans pulling away. from these policies.
So all of this gives a pretty poor sort of look ahead for Trump's chances in the midterms. Then.
I think so, but I don't think that that means that Democrats can, lay back and say, "Okay, we got it. It's going to be a blue wave." The reality is, and this has to do with, Trump's obsession and with winning and off, his history of rigging races in his favor. If these races are not won, if the House isn't won by significant margins, it's going to open. It's going to open us up for him to say that the election result isn't valid, and that will happen. So Democrats cannot rest on their laurels. People that are seeking to change power in the House and in the Senate need to lean all the way in to ensure that the winning margins are without question, and there's no way that he can claim that, oh, it's within the margin of error, so I'm going to overturn it.
And what are some of the key states and areas that people should be looking out for in the upcoming midterms?
Well, I mean, there's a lot going on, right? So, we should pick up House seats across the country, certainly gain the majority. California, I think, as you likely know, responded to Trump's gerrymandering efforts in Texas, effectively neutralizing the gains Trump had hoped to make there. Um, in the Senate, there's a number of critical races, including North Carolina, where incumbent Republican Tom Tillis, he's had enough of Trump. He's retiring. Democrats are running popular former Governor Roy Cooper, who served from 2017 to 2025. So I think North Carolina is really important, not just from the Senate side, but there's a number of House seats there that are critically important. Um, on the House side, MAGA may end up losing seats in Texas. Other critical states for U.S. House elections are Virginia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Colorado, Arizona, among others. On the Senate side, other key Senate seats include Georgia with Democratic incumbent John Ossoff, Michigan. We have an open seat currently held by a retiring Democrat. Maine, where Republican Susan Collins may have used up the last of her 9 lives, finally, voting for Trump's MAGA agenda and these appointees. And of course, Ohio, where Democratic former Senator Sherrod Brown is staging a comeback. So, there's a lot to cover. There's a lot to be paying attention to in the coming months leading up to November of 2026. And the Save America movement is actually going to be playing in a number of these races as we work to ensure that margin is quite significant through the win in November.
And it's already been a pretty tricky election year, even though it's only been a month for Donald Trump, hasn't it? What are
Mhm.
some of the big wins for Democrats that Republicans will be most worried about, do you think?
Well, I mean, I think, as the one that I mentioned, which was an extraordinary win in the Texas state legislature last week, a 31-point swing is something that every Republican should be worried about. And this is where you also see so many Republicans retiring right now because they realize that they're not in a winnable situation. So we're seeing that happen. And there were 6 special elections in the United States House of Representatives in 2025. The last one was for Tennessee's 7th congressional district. Republicans held the seat, but instead of an easy win in 2024, they won the seat by 22 points. They had to spend millions of dollars, and the margin was less than 10 points, so a 13-point swing. So if you're seeing 10 plus point swings in these special elections, and of course, the 31-point swing in Texas. Plus, we had these 2 statewide elections for governors of New Jersey and Virginia in November 2025, where Democrats had resounding victories. If you're on the Republican side of the ticket, you should be concerned. In New Jersey, I think this is really interesting. Every county shifted towards the Democrats, right? In Virginia, Democrats swept all statewide offices and increased their majority in the Virginia House of Delegates from 51 to 64. So all of this kind of adds up to an extremely motivated Democratic voter base. and independent voters that are swinging towards Democratic candidates, and frankly, demoralized MAGA Republican voters. And they're not going to show up like they did or do when Trump's on the ballot. So it's again not there's not a lot of good news right now for Republicans. That said, and I'll say it again, Democrats cannot rest on their laurels and assume that they're going to win, because if the margins are not significant, there is risk that the wins will be overturned by Trump in a desperate attempt to retain his power and avoid accountability. I mean, that's a really, that is a really significant part of this.
And we started this discussion talking about Trump trying to influence the way the US holds elections, and you mentioned there the risk, as you put it, of Trump trying to overturn votes in the upcoming midterms. Are there any other ways that we've seen this administration starting to work on influencing how votes are conducted, how votes are counted? The kind of activity we saw at the end of Trump's last term in office, where he did, try to push certain people and put pressure on about the ways votes were being counted and voting was being conducted.
Yeah, I mean, yes, of course, you're referring to when he pressured the Georgia Secretary of State to find 11,780 votes for him. And yes, I mean, he has a long history of trying to subvert free and fair elections, and it's not any different this time around. He has attacked voting rights. He's calling for national photo ID and proof of citizenship requirements. He's attacked absentee ballots, which are essential for American military service members stationed overseas to participate in our elections. It's been well documented that he's pressuring Republicans at the state level to gerrymander electoral districts. This is his thing. He cheats. He not only in politics but in every area of his life. So I think that kind of behavior is certainly going to continue, and ensuring a free and fair election is a critical aspect of retaining democracy in the United States. And 2026 is it could not be a more important year as it relates to that.
And yet at the same time, this presidency of Trump has really been dominated by the use of executive power and executive orders. If Trump does lose the midterms, is he going to be that concerned? Because, a lot of his legislation has been made by executive order. Could he not just forge ahead without needing the Congress to be Republican?
Well, I mean, executive orders are kind of like writing a rule in the sand. It's they can be immediately reversed by the president, the following president. We saw that when Trump came in and erased all of Biden's executive orders. So, he may wish to rule by decree by these executive orders, but it's not reality. And it's not how our country works.
And it's also been pointed out that winning a majority in either house would give the Democrats much greater subpoena power. There's a lot of things that the Democrats might want to use subpoena powers for, but as is most urgent right now, perhaps, is the ongoing inquiry into the Epstein files. Do you think that's something that the Democrats would explore?
Um, Absolutely. It's just one, honestly, of many examples that we expect a Democratic majority in the House to initiate, and they need to. Accountability is coming. It's also related to all of the ICE overreach and the violations of the Fourth Amendment in the Constitution. So there's a lot of accountability coming and a lot of investigations coming, and it's needed. We've had there's been no checks on Donald Trump in the past year. It's like we haven't even had a legislative branch, frankly. So as soon as the legislative branch becomes active again, hopefully we're going to see the government begin to work as it should and put a major check on Donald Trump and his illegal actions.
Well, Mary Corcoran, CEO of the Save America movement, thank you very much for speaking with me today on the Trump Report.
My pleasure.